So I'm looking at the digital art project, and I've gone to the third round, and I've got some amazing women that I'm going to be showcasing, but it's all of a surprise. We are aiming, I say we like I'm a massive team, and it's not. I have people that I like liaise with, and I do have people that I work with like on other projects. I am aiming to get to 100 women. So it's hashtag 100 women, Black in DA. And by this time next year, I want to publish all the images in a book. I want it in print.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to buy it. I want people to be able to donate to the charities that the women that I'm asking to utilize their quotes and images for. I want it in libraries. I want it in schools. I want children to be able to read it. I want young Black and brown girls to be able to see it and think, actually, in 10, 20 years time, that could be me in the next round.
Yeah.
Or like a new generation of kind of. So the digital art project is something that I'm really, really passionate about, but it's my creative side of Hope, because you have to have your day job. You need things to pay your bills.
Honestly.
So I've got to train, I've got to do my consultancy work, which I really enjoy doing. I like working with different people.
Yeah.
But the digital art side is something that, you know, I go away in an evening and I'm like searching who can I ask to be involved. But I don't just search for these women, I read their profiles. I reach out to them, I get to know them. They don't know I'm doing this, but I might get them to come on a Zoom call to listen to what they've got to say, because at the back of my mind I'm thinking, right, in 3 months time I want her in my project, but I really want to hear what she's got to say first. Because I don't, and it's been fascinating, because a lot of people have been reaching out to me and saying, oh, do you want to use this person or this person from my organization, which I think is brilliant because they're pioneering brown and Black women. But for me, the digital art project is also about showing women who a lot of people out there may not have never even heard of, but they've been working in the sector for years. They're doing amazing things. You know, they're writing books, they're doing things like you do, for example, and other people do. But we just don't know their name. We might not know their brand, because you know what, they're doing it quietly, but they're still doing it.
Yes.
So that's the aim of the project. It's kind of pioneering those quiet voices, and that's why we do it as a quote. Because a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you do more of a visual one where they're saying stuff and we can hear them saying it? And I'm like, nah, I want it as a quote. I want you to be able to read what they've got to say. I want you to be able to imagine what they're saying to you. And that's why I kind of did it like that. And that was the kind of the emphasis behind it.
When I saw the digital art, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Because I think there is something, especially in the sector, of trying to make it like creative. And I think that's something that why I resonate with your work, because like you, I'm trying to amplify women's voices, like you said, who usually voices won't get heard, who might not be in a Cosmopolitan magazine, who are really out here doing this work, out here on the ground and in the field. So you said there's going to be another one coming. When was the first one released? I know it was this year. Was it this year?
Yeah, so the first one was released in June. So I started the Hope national meetings. 16th of April was the first one. And then I realized, so the project actually only came to me like at the end of April. And then I realized, oh my God, there's all these Black and brown women coming on the Hope calls. I'm a brown woman. And we've all got something to say, because the calls, although it was about thinking about what's going on during COVID and looking at best practice and sharing best practice, and there was so many wonderful things that people were doing. And I just thought, actually, I want to put it in a platform. I want to minute what people are saying, because this is going to be something that we want the next generation to be able to read. I want my own children to see, look, this is what your mum was doing during COVID. This is what people were saying. And actually, it got to me and I thought, how can I showcase and amplify their voices in a project? But for me, it had to be artistic. And I think it had to be artistic because of my dyslexia. And because I'm very visual and the way that I think and work. I mean, an idea will come to me while I'm in bed, in a shower, in the car, talking to someone. I mean, I've sat in meetings and I will just randomly say something, and next thing I know, I've signed up to something that I've just thought of. What am I doing? And I think people think I'm really well organized and I have like a structure in place. I have Jack in place. I have what goes on in my head. I need to get it down on paper, and I get that. But for me, the digital art project literally came from just listening to women and men in the project, in the meetings, and thinking, right, I'm going to do something, but it has to be artistic. And it wanted to be something really, really different. And I wanted to showcase images, because I don't know about you, but I felt like really early on, I kept just seeing white women in the sector, and I have a lot of respect for the work that they do, and you know, I will utilize a lot of their materials and work in training. And I think for me, as soon as I saw seeing a lot of white women, I thought, where are the black women, where are the brown women, you know, where are the other minority ethnic groups who I know are working in the sector? And then, you know, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and then for me it just kind of spiraled.
Do you know what, in terms, I know you mentioned your dyslexia, I'm dyslexic too, so a lot of the things that you're saying really resonate with me, where people just think I'm super organized or think like I've got all of this all together, when that is not the case. I'm really just like making it work. Most of the time, like last minute, I'm making it work. I just make it look easy, but it's not. And I know, like, my personal journey with dyslexia, I've seen the beauty of it that has allowed me to be very creative and do some of the things that I'm doing, but equally, like, I have had moments of like tears and just being like, I just don't understand, this isn't fair. Especially when it comes to writing, I want to articulate myself in a particular way because I find it frustrating. I feel like I can speak great, but when it comes to actually writing, it's just like, it just doesn't match up. And I remember in school really struggling, and actually my English teacher, or my teachers in general, thinking that I was just being lazy, and thought I was just being lazy, wasn't bothering, until it was actually, I got diagnosed when I was in college. And even though I was happy, equally I was very sad, because I felt like that was quite late in my education, for teachers to not actually realize it. And can I just ask you about your dyslexic journey, and like when you was diagnosed and just some of the things you went through?
It's really funny that you said that. So my dyslexia, I was diagnosed when I was 17. It was my first year of college. And it was my English teacher that picked it up in my assignments. So it's funny that you said that, because I did A-level English Lit at a local college in Leicester. So I did psychology English Lit, sociology English Lit, and media studies.
Yeah.
And it was my English teacher who picked it up in a lot of my assignments. And I remember it was The Taming of the Shrew that we were reading, and I was fascinated with the book, and I was fascinated with Sylvia Plath. We were doing the bell jar. A lot of it was around, obviously, women. It was around mental health, and obviously The Taming of the Shrew was about how potentially women could be controlled or not controlled. So I knew what I wanted to say about the book and in my essays, but on paper I was crap. I was so bad. My grammar, my structure, I was constantly being told, can you just wait behind? Can we just talk you through your assignment? And then she said, actually, I think you need to go and get tested, which the college did, and I did, and it came out positive. And then they sent me to Nottingham, and I had to have an educational psychologist sit down with me, and that was like an hour's meeting. But it was eye-opening, because it showed me why I did so poorly at primary school and secondary school. So I was, you know, at 15 was when I really sat down and thought, if I don't get my GCSEs and go to college, what am I going to do? So I'm one of 4 siblings. My middle sibling just dropped out. She just decided schooling wasn't for her. My older one carried on with education, and I was kind of the third one. And for me, it was like, well, what else am I going to do? And it's really interesting, because I was, my partner who I'm with now, I'm married to, we were together, and he came from a household where they really valued education. And I always remember, like, his mom saying, you know, if he ever settled down with someone, he'd want her to have a degree, because she had degrees, and they came from a family that were really, really kind of well known within that education space. So actually for me, it was a bit like, right, now I'm going to prove that I can do it. So I got through my GCSEs with his help, with other people's help, but it was college that was really, really key. But actually for me, getting into uni and that university space was brilliant for me, and I'd recommend it to anyone if they feel it's the right thing for them. Because it wasn't just getting the degree for me, it was meeting other people, having that critical debate, learning about other things, other cultures, learning, because I did psychology and sociology, and that for me was the real foundation of, this is the angle that I want to go through. So for me, it was always, I wanted to work for the prison service. I wanted to work kind of within that kind of that remit. I always knew I wanted to work with offenders really young. And I was never really interested in working with kind of victims or that survivor route. But that's the kind of route that I've gone down. So it's funny how things turn out.
Yeah. Do you know what I think it's also the fact that you said it was your English teacher, because what's funny is that in school I had this situation. Okay, so I had coursework that I had to do, and I don't know, well, I'm not going to say my English teacher's name, so she's fine, but basically she lost my coursework so that I could verbally recite the answers, because she knew if I spoke it, I'll do a lot better. But when I think about that, sometimes I sit here and I'm like, thank God she let me do that, because I got my C. But then also it makes me think about, clearly she could recognize something was going on. So it also makes me think about, should she have done more, as opposed to just helping me get my grade, actually put something in more to support me. Like, I'm very thankful for my English, because it was a communications teacher in college that actually was like, nah, something isn't right. And similar to you, like, I did all the exams and I did all the tests and stuff. But when I got to uni, I found that more of a difficult space. But I think it was difficult because of myself. I don't think I was still willing to accept that I was dyslexic and was like, I could just get through this, it'll be absolutely fine. And I think I did myself, I can't think of the word, see the dyslexic just kicks in, but not justice, whatever the word is, it was worse for me in the long run by actually not really seeking that support and getting the support that I needed. And I also think there was something for me, like, culturally, of even like saying to people that I was dyslexic, and it would be like, no, you're not one of them type thing. And now at my older age, I feel like I'm just with my chest, I'm dyslexic. I'll be letting you know. I'm still going to work hard and I can still do this work, but I'm going to let you know this. Did you find it a struggle at any point in terms of telling other people? Or was that something you kind of kept close to your chest? How was that for you?
I think uni was exactly the same response. So I went to a university in Birmingham, and the uni that I went to was, my circle group was predominantly brown and black. So actually talking about dyslexia or saying, look, I've got a learning difficulty or learning disability, or even just using the word disability, was like, well, look at you, you blatantly don't. And I don't, it's like, look at you, it's almost like, well, you don't look like you've got a disability, but it's like, well, what do those who have disability, if it's something that's not kind of visual, of course you're not going to look like you've got it. So, and I think the other thing was, and I don't know about you, but when I went to university, I was able to apply for a grant to get some equipment for my dyslexia. And it was almost like, oh, wow, so you get free equipment attached to it. And it was like, no, it's not free. Obviously, it's stuff that's going to help me with my assignments. And, I needed that dictaphone, or I needed, something to record back what I was doing. And it was really hard, I think, just to get people to understand kind of how I was feeling and what was going on for me. I was also a little bit slower in some of the lectures, because although they gave me extra time in exams, I think one of the things, I don't know about your university, but I don't think my university was great in telling the lectures. And you're sitting in a lecture potentially with 60 people in a massive room, and you're expected to take notes and look at the screen, then download the assignments afterwards. I mean, I'll be really honest, every year I didn't pass. I had to take exams, or I had to redo an assignment, because every single year at university, I was told you haven't hit that threshold. Uni was a real battle for me, an absolute battle. It was hard. I learned a lot about myself, and it was only until I got into my final year, because I did a placement in Amsterdam. Actually, it was a very interesting placement. I loved it. But it was my final year that I really thought, wow, I don't know how I got through my first and my second year.
Yeah. Do you know what? I studied social work, so I had placements every year. And to be fair, I feel like it was those placements that saved me, because and I'm going to say this is difficult, but I was so great in my placements. I was so great in my placements that it's like my tutors couldn't ignore my ability to support people, though the writing side of things wasn't up to par. So I know it was because of like the placement and that stuff and like my portfolios that allowed me to like pass and get through. But if I didn't have the placement and that actual like experience and being able to show that side of things, I think that I might have not passed in the way in which I did. And I think that's why it's so important when I think about like your visual book. And that's probably why you do the things, why in the way in which you do them. And I know that my dyslexia has informed me in terms of the way in which I do things too, because it's like, let it be visual, things don't have to be long. So when I think about the book, This Is Us, there's some short paragraphs in there. There's some longer stories in there. I equally said to the women and girls, just write how you write. Like, this is not an academic piece of work. I didn't want it to be, because I knew that's something that I wouldn't be able to do. So actually, let me open up space for those who don't see themselves as academics or don't want to write in a particular styled way. So yeah, like everything you said really resonates with me.
Your book actually inspired me for the Hope Digital Art Project book.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, because I mean, so I've ordered your book, and I remember when you were talking about it on one of the last Hope calls, and then you've got it on like the website and you got it on Twitter, and I remember going in and reading it and just looking at the structure, and actually I thought that's exactly what we need. We need that notion of you don't need to be a certain element of an academic to get to that kind of that publishing stage.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, I've got to, I don't know about you, but sometimes I do have that thing of, shit, will anyone like my work? Am I doing it right? You know, is it having the reach that I want it, you know, want it to have? And yeah, and all of those things come back to me, and I thought, well, no, I'm gonna do what she's doing because she's doing it well.
Thank you, because everything you say I go through too, the imposter syndrome, the can I do it, even when coming on Hope Call, that's why I was so thankful for you reaching out, because I had stopped doing public speaking, I'd stopped doing my interviews. I was just like, no, I'm just, who cares type thing. And so I appreciate that. But no, during the whole process, I'm always like, oh, even when I put out these interviews, I'm like, before, like when I pressed retweet or tweet it, I just throw my phone. I'm like, I can't do this.
So, yeah, like who's gonna look at it? Yeah, honestly. You were brilliant on that Hope call. When I read the comments people were saying about you on the call, I didn't even want your permission. I just wanted to send it to you. I just wanted you to read what they were saying.
Thank you. I really appreciated that. Like I really did. Because like I said, like I just was like, I don't know if the public speaking thing is for me. And I think that's what's so great about the space you've created. I think it's amazing. Like I think the fact that you are giving space to Black and brown women and men to just speak and allow us to be. And there's definitely something about your energy, because I read a quote from an interview you did on Respect, where I don't quote me, it says, you said, I feel like all I've done is got a Zoom account. And I'm like, how dare you say that? Like, how dare you say that? Because it is so much more than that. Because I remember when we first spoke about doing the call, I wasn't sure what I was going to speak about, but just from speaking from you, it was like, okay, don't know what I'm going to speak about, but I'm going to speak about something, because this feels like a warm and a safe space, and I felt so welcome. And so I just want you to know that you are doing more than just in a Zoom account. Like, you are really creating, opening and holding space. And I'm sure there's so many other people who have spoken who may have not even got a chance to express to you or give gratitude to let you know that what you did is amazing. And I feel like this is the perfect time just to go into like Hope and the Hope calls, because people might not know what we're speaking about. I know Hope, I believe it was created in 2008.
Yeah. So I developed it kind of, I had just left a company that I was working with. It was a charity that I was working with, and I knew I wanted to deliver training, and I'm always been interested in the training side of it. So how can I take my knowledge and almost pass it on? Whether you choose to listen to it and utilize it is up to you. And I say that to everyone at the start of the training, session. I'm here to share my knowledge. What you do with it is up to you. I'm not enforcing it on you.
Yeah.
And that's why Hope is helping other people every day, because I feel like it's about helping you, but it's your choice whether you want to take that on board or not. And I think that's the kind of route that I always try and go down. I don't like to kind of say you have to listen to what I've got to say. So it was developed in 2008. I always kept a full-time job going while I was doing it. As you know, it's about kind of a lot of companies, it's about developing it. And I think what's been so great about the past couple of years is, for me, I'm still doing the training consultancy side, which is really, really important. But what's happened this year is it's given me the real opportunity to show people my creative side. And I don't think I've done that with Hope yet. And a lot of people, when they run training consultancy companies or you work for yourself, you think, well, that is you, that's it, you're done. And actually what I'm trying to show people is you're not done, you're never done. If you've got an idea, you need to roll with it, you need to do it, you need to show people your capacity. We are always developing, we are always learning. We can always work with each other. And, I'm in my 30s now. I started Hope when I was in my 20s. I'm different to what I was like in my 20s. So for now, I'm trying to show a different side of Hope. So it's really key. I mean, the training that I do, a lot of it is predominantly around domestic abuse, sexual violence and safeguarding. And that's kind of my bread and butter. It's what I'm really passionate about. It's something I'll always advocate for. A lot of people will say to me, do you do it because you're a survivor? I'm a brown woman. So whenever I'm delivering forced marriage training, the first question I always get is, oh, so you're a forced marriage survivor then? And I'm like, nah, I ain't. Oh, you've had an arranged marriage then? Nah, I ain't. Oh, you were a domestic abuse kind of victim? Nah, I ain't. So why do you do what you do? I do it because I'm passionate about it. I do it because I want to advocate for survivors.
Mm-hmm. Also, if you were, I'm just like, is this appropriate to ask right
But people
now?
do. People do.
It is ridiculous. I will never forget. I was at a friend's house. It was like a little get together, and I was telling this boy that was there like work that I do, and he was like, "Oh, do you do this work? Like, has something happened to you?" And I said, "My brother, we're in the middle of a get together, right?" Like I said to you, so what about if I said, yeah.
What are you going to do with that information?
What are you going to do right about now? What are you going to do? I was like, you can't hold space right now. Is this the right time? And this is like, this is so inappropriate. Like, so yeah.
But people ask, people are fascinated. People want to know your life story. They want to know why you do what you do, especially if you talk about domestic abuse and you are a woman of, color, and you talk about, and when I do stuff around forced marriages, and I've had it over the years, it's kind of, what's your story then, Meena? And I'm just like, A, it's not appropriate for me to tell you my story right now. But B, like, do I need to have a story for you to listen to what I've got to say? And that's not knocking any survivors' experience or anything like that, because it's really important to have lived experience. Survivors also speak about what's kind of happened and what they've experienced. But I think Hope is very much around kind of that learning mechanism, sharing that knowledge. But also I'm trying to show people the creative side, but also bringing communities and people together, because the Hope Network, what I'm trying to do with that space, it's a safe space. I want it to be a brave space. I want it to be a creative space, but also I want to be able to have, Black, brown, white, other minority ethnic groups, men, women, regardless of their sexuality, on there to have that dialogue in a bit more of that chilled kind of, let's just talk about it, and then let's see what the outcomes are, and let's see who wants to do what. Because I just think sometimes some of the meetings I've been to, I don't know about you, but like when I've had national roles, and this is no fault to them, they're sometimes really rigid. And I've been to meetings and I've sat there and thought, do I say something? Will they understand what I'm trying to say? And again, with my dyslexia, it's like, I might say something, I know what I'm trying to say. I know what I mean. But will other people understand what I've got to say?
No, and I think it's important that, like, that's why I did like your call, because I feel like I was able to say what I want to say, how I wanted to say it. And even though I'm getting to a point for myself personally that I want to do that whatever space I'm in, but I felt like I could do that in your space. It felt like very welcoming for me to just say what I want to say. Also, I wanted to also quickly go back to the fact that, one, I think there's definitely something about when Black and brown women deliver training on domestic violence, sexual violence, we get asked that question, but a lot of the time that same question isn't asked for white women. Usually I feel like they're seen as like the helpers, the ones to come and help and save the day. So I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if I did speak to a white woman who was a trainer, and she probably doesn't get that question as much. Also, another thing I wanted to quickly ask you was, you said that you started Hope in your 20s, now you're in your 30s. Could I just ask you, what was the main thing or things that you have learned in that space of time? Whether it's life things, whether it's about the sector, is there one thing that kind of stands out to you that you're like, ooh?
I think I know our sector gets a lot of beef, right? But one thing I do want to say is I'm really proud of our sector. I think we've come a long way since I was in my 20s. So I know there's a lot of stuff around the domestic abuse bill. I know there's even stuff even now around family courts and legislation, and how people are treated, and even how police call outs, and, could the police be better trained, be better equipped? Are they culturally aware enough? And I know there's some things recently that's gone on where you just think, are we going backwards? But from where I was kind of 10, 15 years ago to where we are in the sector, we have moved on. We haven't moved on massively, but we've definitely done some really amazing and creative things. And I think where I was in my 20s to where I am now, I'm a lot more confident to be able to say in meetings, this is what I feel, this is what I want to do. And I think with training, you were so used to kind of doing it a certain way. And the great thing about the digital art project is the images of the women are the images I now use in training. So I stop. So I've delivered some training recently, and when I pause, I say, right, we're just going to pause now, and I just want to introduce you to so and so, and this is her quote. And I don't follow that, you know, that stringent, you know, running order.
Yeah, I'm still about the sector. Maybe I know I kind of like alluded to it on the call, but I think I've definitely found it difficult. So to hear you say that you have seen some growth does give me some hope. And oh, no pun intended, but yeah, it does give me some hope that things will get better. And I guess ultimately for me, it's about doing the work and the service users, but it is really difficult. I found it, a lot of my peers at this moment, to be in a sector, especially with things like Black Lives Matter happening, and we see how organizations, in my opinion, are not showing up in a way I would hope them to or needed them to. In regards to the calls, so tell me about your experience as a facilitator, as the space holder of the call, because there's been some calls that I haven't been on, but I've heard some things that have happened, a lot of back and forth, especially around terms of BAME, BME, political blackness. And so as the facilitator, what is your experience with situations like that, or just anything?
So as the facilitator, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, of course.
As the facilitator, I sit in those meetings and I am shitting myself, like literally. I sit there and I'm like, one part of my brain is going, this is amazing. Like, we're talking about political blackness. We're talking about the use of BAME. We're talking about where is black in BAME. And I'm like, this is amazing. People need to hear this. People need to have this debate. We're not going to change it overnight. We've been talking about it for years. Why are we talking about it again now?
Yeah.
But it's, you know, we're going to minute it. People are going to listen. What change is going to come from people talking about it? So this side of my brain's like, this is amazing. And then this side of my brain's like, fucking hell, what the hell's going on? Am I facilitating this okay? Have I given people enough time? And then I'm really conscious of the space. And then I'm like, shit, I can see all the white people in the group looking really uncomfortable. So I'm just like, so I'm sitting there like, oh my God, no one's going to come to the next H.O.P.E call. Like, they're literally just going to be like, Meena, you don't know what you're doing. So when I started the call, I know which calls you're alluding to. They've probably been some of the best calls though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so this is the irony. So I come off and I'm sweaty and I'm like, what am I doing? You know, someone's going to send me a message. They're going to be nasty. They're going to be like, what are you doing? You don't know what you're going on about. Why are you putting up? Why are you trying to, like, you know, raise racial tensions or something like that? And then what I do is I get the complete opposite. I will get email from white, black, Asian, you know, anyone who's on the call, and they'll be like, wow. And I just think, okay, so it's gone the complete opposite way. And to be fair to the sector, you're right. There definitely is parts of the DA sector that are not talking up. And the right word is like visually, like really outspokenly, loudly saying stuff.
Yeah.
In the background, and there's two organisations in particular, and one of them I'll actually name, Respect, the national kind of PERP service, and Drive, which is kind of part of Safe Lives. What I've noticed is they've put their money where their mouth is. And they are definitely, I've seen the way that they're changing, the way they're writing stuff. They've just released something today about the male victim call that we did. And they've very explicitly written about BAMEs. They've done a footnote around it. If I can see other organisations break down their ethnicity data and not just say, yes, we have 60% of BAME survivors in accommodation, move on. But instead, if you can say to me, 26% were Black Caribbean, 27% was Indian, the 15% were Pakistani, that for me is showing that you're breaking it down. Because I know you're sitting on that data. And it also then is showing me actually 27% of the Black Caribbean women are having accommodation move on. I'm comfortable with that because I can then use that as a statement and as a strong statement to say, well, this is why Black Caribbean women need more funding in the area. This is why we need to invest in proper housing. This is why we need to invest in advocates who are culturally aware and culturally sensitive to their needs.
Yeah.
I'm backing it up as well. I know it's always been there, but I'm also saying to people, well, actually, your data's saying it as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I can appreciate like organizations doing things behind the scenes and actually doing what they need to do on an organizational level. But also I do want to see people out loud, like I want to see visually, I want to see the things on Twitter, but equally I guess there's this balance of not just wanting to see things on Twitter or in statements, but they're not really doing the work in the background. But yeah, I do want to see more women's organizations be a bit more vocal when it comes to particular things. But yeah, I feel like I don't want to get into that because I can really feel my heart like being like, don't start getting emotional because it's difficult. I find it, especially with Black Lives Matter, that has happened recently. And just speaking to colleagues who work in particular organizations and the way in which they were treated was difficult to hear. The last call that I was on, or that you had, I guess it was all male speakers, and I think it was really important to do that. I guess for me, when I think about my feminism, Black feminism, that does include men. It is complex because there is something about men causing harm, but equally there's something about men's position in society, so they have to be a part of my activism. And so for me, it was so great that you highlighted that and did have a call dedicated to men. Could you just talk about the importance of doing that? And I just want to say the call was so beautiful, especially from the letter that you read from the first speaker, Omar. That it was a really amazing and so touching.
Yeah, I think that call for me was it was amazing because, and I've got to emphasize, like, a number of those individuals that are on the call, they never pressurized me to do that type of call. And I think what's been really fascinating, and I don't know about you, when I started the Hope calls, and in particular I've been focusing on Black, Asian and minority ethnic issues, I was expecting a lot of men in particular, and I don't know why, to almost say, to ask me the question, what about men? I know a lot of the white feminists get a lot on Twitter. And I was almost waiting for, why are you only focusing on Black communities or Asian communities, or why are you not talking about, all lives matter? And actually, I think I've only heard the all lives matter hashtag once in the whole time that I've been doing this. That one person on Twitter has said it to me, and it's someone I didn't know. I've never had anyone say to me, what about men? And I think, and I don't know if they're just respecting the fact that that was my 9th call, but the first 8 calls, although we talk about men, it's very much been heavily Black, Asian or other minority ethnic women who have been speaking. I didn't actually have a lot of male speakers, and that wasn't something I did intentionally. It's just naturally evolved. So when I did the male victims call, I didn't know what to expect. I was almost waiting for someone in particular from our sector to say to me, what the hell are you doing? Why do they have a space on your platform? But for me, it was really important to give them a space. And then I met Omar, who's a social work student, and he reached out to me on Twitter and said, can I tell my story? And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Because actually the Hope platform is not, I don't report to anyone. It's organic. The people is kind of telling me what they want. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And I think the way we did it, because he didn't want to be identified, so he switched his camera off. He'd written up his story. I had rang him in the week. We'd had 2 conversations, and I asked him, you guide me how you want me to do this. At any point, I said to Omar, you can drop out, which means come on the call, but if you say to me 1 minute before 12, Meena, I don't want you to read my story out, Meena's not going to read your story out. It's as simple as that. I will say to people, he said, no, it ain't happening. And I remember texting him, I think at like 11:30 that day, and just saying, Omar, are we still okay? Are we cool? Are you all right? Can I just check this is how you want it? And he was, and I think that's the beauty of doing it on Hope like that, doing it on Zoom like that, because you can very quickly say, are you okay? Are you still there? You have to multitask. But it was really important for me to have Omar's voice kind of heard, but by Omar. I know I was reading it out, but I wanted you to feel like Omar was present, like his story is his story, and it was the first time he was kind of sharing it in that space. So the male victims call was really important for me, and it was dedicated to Omar. You know, it was dedicated to those young lads who are exactly like Omar, living, breathing, experiencing those things that, you know, it shouldn't be happening to them at such a young age, but they're growing up to become men, and what route and path do they want to go down. And actually he's a prime example, because I don't know about you, but I still get a lot in training, oh, if you're a survivor of domestic abuse, or if you were exposed to it, you know, you're more likely to go on to become a perpetrator, or you're more likely to then go on to also experience DA, because you're in that cycle. And you know, people have that debate with me all the time, and you know, I really, and I do say it to them, but I really at that point just want to scream out, I've met so many people in my life who have been survivors, and they're not perpetrators, they're also not gone on to experience domestic abuse. They're just doing their thing. You know, they're just doing their thing, whatever their thing is. And that's how I see Omar. You know, he's just doing his thing, he's trying to do something great, and he's a young lad. And so the male victims call was really important for me, and it wasn't just important for me, it was important for people like Omar, but it was also really important to hear data from national services like the Men's Advice Line that's done by Respect, from Mankind Initiative. Because I don't know about you, but when I look at statistics or I look at data, again, it's very white centric, or if they talk about BAME, they don't break it down. And it's very much geared around kind of women. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. That's important for us to know. But for me, it's really important, especially since Black Lives Matter. And I think Marvin from Dope Black Dads was really key in kind of talking about masculinity and why Black men in particular don't report, but also how much out there is on research on Black male victims of DA.
Exactly.
Or, you know, Black young boys and men who are experiencing it, whether it's through witnessing it, participating in it, they're actually the victim. And that's why I asked Marvin that question. And I don't think he knew I was going to ask him, but I wanted to know, we know statistically if you're Black, you're more likely to be stopped and searched, and especially if you're a Black man. But actually, if you're a Black man, you're picking up the phone and then you're saying, I'm now a victim of DA. I'm not saying the police are not going to take you seriously, but actually, will they take you seriously? Will you even pick up the phone and say that, or speak to a family friend or a family member? And that's why it was so interesting to hear Marvin say, well, actually, think about how Black men and women have to survive, but in particular Black men, and you're thinking about kind of sofa surfing, going back to your parents' house, you know, seen as the not doable thing, but also any links with any other forms of criminality could also be an element of surviving that DA, because we see it with women all the time. So, you know, one of the calls I'm going to do in the future, I'm just in the middle of having conversations with the right people, is Black and brown women who are in prison.
Oh, I have someone amazing.
You need to give, please help me out. If you've got any links, because, and I'm not talking about what they're in prison for, I'm not talking about their crimes, I'm talking about Black and brown women in prison who have experienced domestic abuse before they went to prison, that might have a link with their crime of why they've been convicted, but actually I'm really interested in their experiences.
Yeah, because there's an amazing woman called Brenda, aka Lady Unchained, that actually interviewed her a few weeks back, and she was speaking about her journey through prison systems, but also she spoke about the fact that prior to going to prison, all of these things had happened to her. And so even her probation officer said, I'm surprised you weren't here earlier, because of all these things that had happened to you. Equally on the call, we was talking about like petty crimes, like shoplifting, but ultimately saying that women are shoplifting because they need food to eat, to survive, because they don't. And we was just kind of speaking about that cycle. So I'll send you the link to that interview and also introduce you to Brenda. But yeah, that call was amazing. It was such a great call. So during COVID, you have basically done a digital calendar, you started calls. I'm sure there's so many other things you've been doing, training, consultancy that we don't know of. I hope you have taken some time for rest and self-care, because I know for me, like tapping into your calls was great because it allowed me to get my mind back right. Just because when I tell you, I spent a lot of COVID like, okay, this is my time to catch up on shows and I'm going to Netflix it out, which was great, but I said, let me get back to work. One show that I watched recently was Indian Matchmaker. And it was an interesting watch for me because in one breath I was watching it as entertainment, which there were some parts that I did find really entertaining. And I guess in Nigerian, there's a lot of things that I can relate to or understand in terms of wedding and this big ceremony and kind of mothers inserting themselves in weddings.
Yeah.
But equally, I guess there's also speaking to people, also, I guess, doing this work, seeing another side to things where seeing how certain words or phrases or seeing how harmful it could be. And I have seen discussions and had discussions on both about representation of it being great, but equally it causing further harm, and for a particular women actually watching it and being in those situations and actually saying, this isn't entertainment, this is our lives, this is difficult. I guess for me, I always sit with survivors, and so I don't see it as entertainment anymore and sit with them and see, okay, I can see how this is harmful. I saw on Twitter that, you watched it on Twitter?
Yeah, so I watched Indian, and I was late to watching it because I'm a bit like you. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to catch up on this, I'm going to catch up on that, and I never really did because I feel like I'm always working, or I've always have been working. But then I got to a stage, and it was around that period that I tweeted. I was knackered. I was really tired. And I remember just switching off my laptop, and I obviously have to deal with the kids in the evening, and obviously I'm married, so you have to do your home life, you have your family life. And I remember just saying, I need something for me. And a lot of my friends were WhatsApping me and saying, well, have you seen so-and-so? I was like, I'm not really interested in watching it, but okay, I'll turn it on. And I couldn't switch it off. I physically actually couldn't switch it off. And I couldn't switch it off because parts of me, when I was watching it late at night, I was screaming at the TV. I was literally swearing at Seamanti. I was literally like, how can you say that on camera as an interview? So I want to talk about colorism, and I want to talk about divorced brown and black women and the stigma attached to kind of getting married again, because that really stood out for me. And also there was, I mean, Nadia was my favorite. She was a free spirit. And actually, I just wanted Nadia to find love.
Honestly, like, I was just like, Nadia, like, I really wanted it to work. Like,
I just really wanted her to. And Nadia's like your best mate that just kind of is looking, and you're just like, how are you still single? Like, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're beautiful. She had such a good outlook to life. She was also really family orientated. She was really proud to be Ghanaian and to kind of explain to people her Ghanaian roots. And I was like, please, Nadia, just find whatever makes you happy. If you think that is a relationship, whatever, just find whatever makes you happy. But I think there were certain parts of it, and it was especially the bits around kind of Mumbai and a lot of the families in India. And obviously my origins are in India. Some of those really resonated with me because I was like, oh my God, I have family that are like that. You know, both my parents are kind of from the north of India, which is Punjab. And I was just like, I'm so grateful that I didn't have to go through any of that. I mean, I met my partner when I was 15. We were together for quite a while, and then we got married when we were 25, but it was my choice. You know, I was never pressurized. I have a dialogue with my parents, with my mum in particular, all the time. And I actually sat with her and watched an episode of Indian Matchmaker. And actually the other week, I didn't interview her, but I had a bit of a, Mom, tell me a little bit more about what it was like when you met Dad, because she had an arranged marriage. And the more I heard about her story, so she was 17, my dad was in his 30s when they got married. When I heard more about her story, I was a bit like, your generation isn't actually that far. It was in the 70s. And it's not, and I was born in kind of 1980s, and I was like, well, that's not, that just for me doesn't seem too far away. But their stories, you know, my mum met my dad on a Tuesday, they got married on a Thursday. They didn't have that much of a dialogue. It was the way it is. She was told, get up in the morning. Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. What can I ask? So what was different? Why did they choose to do it differently with you? Have you had that conversation?
I had the conversation with all the time, but then what she says to me is actually when I hit 18, and when I've got two older sisters, when we were kind of young and we were about to hit 18, my mum's understanding was that we would just get married. So when I was 25 and I was still living at home and I wasn't married, I remember her asking me, like, you know, are you gay? And it's okay to be gay, and, you know, like, just let us know. Or it's kind of like, why do you? And I was just like, we all went to uni, so me and my older sister went to university, but we all got married kind of in our late 20s. But again, it was our choice. They just never ever pressurized us. But I don't think they would have had a chance in hell because of the way we are. And I think, and indirectly, because my mum used to run her own, my mum was a market trader. She used to run the market, like she was in the market world, which is white working class, really, think about it. Like, so Gary Lineker, the footballer, his fruit and veg stall was right near our stall. growing up.
Yeah.
So his parents and like his family would run their fruit and veg stall, and then you had my mum's stall in the middle. My dad was a factory worker.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, we were from a very young age. I mean, I started working when I was 14. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I worked as a sales assistant selling shoes.
Mm.
So it's like, I think their understanding was my daughters are just going to grow up, have this arranged marriage and move on. But the reality was we were all very much like, well, no, we're really independent. We do what we do. And, you know, it was like, the biggest thing I was always told is like, just don't ever bring the police home. Do what you need to do. Just make sure the police don't turn up on our doorstep.
Yeah.
That was kind of the biggest shameful thing I could have ever had done. So, you know, those nights that I came in drunk, you know, after clubbing or whatever, I would just sneak up into the toilet and like just no one would see me. But like, have my parents seen me drunk? Of course they have.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all those kind of things. But I think I was not, I mean, I say I'm lucky, but actually I shouldn't be lucky. This should be the norm for brown girls to have that open conversation and that dialogue with their parents. You know, not once I very openly told them that, you know, I'm not going to marry. I'll marry who I want to marry if I choose to get married, and all those kind of things. But I think, you know, I started dating really young. I've been with him since I was 15. For them, it was always like, she's a lost cause. Just let her do what she needs to do. I was a bit of a rebel always. And it was like, it's never really going to happen. So when I watched the program, I felt gutted. Some of the comments that were coming out of people's mouths, and in particular the matchmaker, because I just thought, are we still there? And I always say, like, to my mum, oh, I expect this in India, because I only went to India last year in October to visit family, and I took my kids there for the first time. But the mentality still, parts of India is definitely still backwards. It doesn't matter how modern they say they are, how much money they've got, how big their houses are, you know, we've got this business, we've got that business. When you sit down and actually have a dialogue with them about cultural norms and expectations for women and expectation for boys, it's very different. It's really different. I mean, I was really lucky. I got to visit the magistrates courts. I was a magistrate when I went to India in October, so I got to visit the magistrates courts. I got to visit, you know, the prison cells. I got to see some of the cases that they were dealing with. But even the structure and the order of the courts, it was just chaotic to watch compared to our British system. So it's really, really different. And I remember seeing an advocate approaching the judge and talking about domestic abuse, and in particular it was around dowry, because they have certain offences out there. But even the way that it's done, it's just being a victim and a survivor out there. You're just in a crowd of people. It was just crazy. And I think what really stood out for me when I was watching Indian Matchmaker, was one thing was around colorism. So it was around, you know, the darker you are, the less likely you are to be seen as being suitable. And it really hit me, because I just thought, are we still at that stage? Because I remember saying to my mom, so you agreed to marry dad, like, are you mad? And she was like, well, I saw the back of his neck and he was really fair, so I went with it. Because she was kind of taught, like, if you're fair and he's fair, you know, job done.
And you said before that your mum and dad met on Tuesday, then got married on Thursday.
Yeah, they literally got married 48 hours. And only recently, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was sat in the garden with my mum having a dialogue about her and my dad. And I'm in my 30s and I've never asked this. And I remember saying to her, well, how did it actually happen? Because I've seen her wedding pictures, and we talk about it, like, oddly on and off. I think I'm the only child that probably brings it up with her the most. And she said she was literally woken up on the day and, like, told by her dad, and my mum's one of 18 children, and told by her father, someone's come down, it's a suitor, get up, you're going to go and meet him. So she got up, she got dressed, got to put her best dress on. And I says, where was your mum? Like, wasn't your mum saying to your dad, like, hold on a minute, like, yeah, she can go and meet him, but we just need to have a bit of a dialogue to see what it's like. And she's like, oh, my mum was out of town. It was in my dad's hand and he said yes, so I said yes. And she goes, the only reason why I agreed, because she goes, I didn't actually want to get married, but she goes, the reason why I said yes was because I thought, actually, if I'm going to do it and I'm going to move away from India and move to the UK, then maybe that'll be a bit more of a better outcome for me. But it was fascinating to hear her, because watching it now, yes, there's this multi-million-pound company and the £1 million business, in Indian weddings. I mean, the average Indian wedding is 60 grand in the UK. And it's almost like, you know, who can bring in the biggest result to that wedding. I don't know what Nigerian weddings are like, but
they are a lot.
It's the, you know, it's the outfits, it's the money, it's the food, it's who's wearing what, who's giving what, who's doing what. And so so it was that. And also the other thing that really stood out for me in the program was the Sikh lady, I can't remember her name, and the dad who was cooking with her in the kitchen. And I thought, oh, that's quite nice, you know, he's cooking with her, it's showing that family side. And then obviously they talk about her being separated because her partner had obviously cheated on her. She'd chosen her partner. But then Seema, you know, the matchmaker Seema says, oh, but if you're a divorced woman, it's harder to find you a match. And again, it was the stigma of you're divorced, but also she had a child.
Yeah.
And I think I actually cried at that episode. I cried for her.
There were some hard watches. And I think the way in which Seema treated, I can't remember his name, but he was a bit of a playboy. And I actually found it quite hilarious that at the end, he ended up with one of Seema's friend's daughters.
Yeah.
You could see she really took to him.
Yeah.
She took to him because he was like this young playboy. And for me, that was equally sad to see, because I know you're the matchmaker, but for me, it would have been so nice if she was taking up more for the women and ensuring that the women were getting what they wanted to.
Yeah.
Like you said with the colorism, like I remember she used the term fair. I remember she said she's slim, fair, and this, so she's more likely to find someone. And it was moments like that it was really, I realized this isn't entertainment. There's something more here. And this can actually be very harmful. Do you think there is any good out of a program like that? Because I guess some could say that even in its harm, it's highlighting and showing the world that this is very real. And this is...
do you know what? I reflected on it, and the bits I was laughing at, I was like, oh my God, you know, there was parts in it, I was like, oh my God, should I even be laughing at this? The bits I was crying at, I was like, oh my God, why am I crying at this? But then there was bits where there was the guy from the US who talked about his dad who had gone to prison because he'd attempted to murder his kind of second wife. And he talked about being brought up in a household where there was a lot of domestic abuse. I think he was the teacher guy. And I thought, well, actually, it's showcasing, you know, how young people can be when they're exposed to domestic abuse. And his mum's done really well. And he seemed like a really lovely guy. And you could just see, again, I was rooting for him. Like, I just hope he finds love. So a part of me was like, you know, people look for love all the time. And if they can't find it that way, do they go down the matchmaker way? And actually in the Western world, we have dating apps all the time. You know, what is the difference? It's about looking at a certain criteria, isn't it? It's, I want this, 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 and this. And you get to the stage where you're like, I want to cut out all the bullshit and I'm going to give you my list and I want you to match me to that level. So we have it in the Western world. It's not like we don't have it here. So I think the program was really good to show the way they do it, because it was starting a debate kind of nationally. I saw so many groups on Facebook and Twitter talking about colorism, talking about divorced women with children, you know, who were in the brown community, you know, should they be allowed to find love again? And it's almost like, well, why wouldn't they? And also this whole concept of mother-in-laws and, you know, father-in-laws and daughters going into families. And there was that one particular mum who her blood pressure was always high, and it was like, you know, my blood pressure. And it's like, love, your blood pressure is high because you do it to yourself. It's like, you know, I'd love to sit down in a room and just be like, Andy, this is why it's high, like literally. But it's like, but you just, and they are the aunties that I have around me through my mum's friends. And I've heard all those conversations, you know, my daughter's not married, my son's not married. And it's like, you know, once they're married and they have the kids, and is that what's going to make you happy? Is that your fulfillment in life? And what's really scary, it is for them. But for other people, you know, it's not all aunties are like that. So I don't have the answer. There's no set answer. I think it was fascinating to watch. And I think it's okay not to have the answer at this stage, but I think it was fascinating to watch. I think it's definitely something that sparked a debate. And what was really nice was actually having Black women like you and other Black women and white women message me and say, I watched that and I found this part fascinating, or I left at this bit, or, you know, this bit really sparked a questioning for me, because actually you're seeing a real insight into someone else's culture as well.
There were many things that it was good to see, like for me. but yeah, but I had to kind of turn my head away from it being entertainment because it was people's lives. But yeah, it was great to see the setup of the weddings. Or there was one bride who the mother-in-law flooded her with gifts. I was like, this is lovely, isn't it? And it was nice to see some of those things. And like you said, like even the generational, I like the generational aspect of it. So seeing parents, grandparents, especially with the teacher, his grandpa, and like everyone sitting around, I felt like that was so beautiful, and it was nice to see that. And like you said, there is something that people in arranged marriages is like, I know people who like friends of friends. It's not in the same way, but it's like, I've got this friend, you two will make sense. I'm going to bring you two together.
Yeah.
To an extent, that is some form of an marriage, is someone bringing you and arranging something. And so there is definitely, I think, a stigma because of the particular Asian community, where it's seen as negative, which we can see, but it isn't all negative and it isn't all bad.
No, and it's definitely not all negative. I have got cousins and friends, and even my middle sibling and my younger sibling went down that element of an introduction route. And, you know, I come from a quite, you know, you'd say, you know, like we say modern family, but at the end of the day, everyone is different, and how we all find our partners is going to be different. I've got friends now from uni that are being introduced to people, and they're going on dates, and if it doesn't work out, you know, they're moving on to the next one. But they're being introduced through their, you know, their samaj, their community, their family, through online Asian dating sites or apps. People are utilizing it. It is a business out there. People are utilizing it without a doubt. I think it's just like you said, it's kind of how much of that is then going to have an impact on that person. You know, if we're saying actually, if you're too dark, you're not very desirable. Or if you're divorced with a child, you're not desirable. And it's that part of it that doesn't sit comfortably with me.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay, so what is next?
Oh
so
my God.
you have so much going on, but what is next for a part of me wants to say for Hope Training, but also a part of me wants to say for you, for Meena, like what's next?
I suppose, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is the digital art project is always going to be my big thing. That's kind of next. There's a lot of research programs that I'm trying to get involved in with academics. So there's a couple of things that are going to be coming out that Hope is going to be leading on and working with others. I'm also looking to do an allies project as part of the digital art project. I want to showcase men. I also want to showcase white women who are in the sector who are allies. I want to showcase a number of things around this allies project. And I think what's next for me, what's really interesting is I had a call that I have with someone kind of over every 6 week period. And I wouldn't say it's coaching. I don't know if it's coaching or mentoring or clinical supervision or reflective supervision, whatever you want to call it. And actually she said to me, just keep it small. Think about what you want to do for the next 12 months. So I definitely know that my project is going to go, is going to expand. And I think for me, it's knowing it's okay to be working for yourself on a full-time basis, because I've always had a full-time job alongside Hope. And it's knowing that I'm going to be all right, and just making sure that I still take time out for myself. I take time out for my family is really, really important. I think COVID has taken it out of a lot of people. I think people have lost lives. We've all lost someone that we know. So it's definitely reflecting on that, but also reflecting on the positives, and just being really, really mindful that we've got to offer hope to everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was actually going to ask you what advice would you give to young women in the sector, but I feel like what you've already just said, as you were saying, I was like, yeah, I feel you. Like I was taking it as advice. And so I want to maybe end on asking your 17-year-old self that was diagnosed with dyslexia, what would you tell your 17-year-old Meena, with all the things you've learned now about yourself? What would you tell her?
What a beautiful question. I would tell my 17-year-old self, who'd just been diagnosed with dyslexia at the time, that you can do it. There's definitely a future. There's a space for you in the working world. There's also a space for you in the educational world, because I never believed there'd be a space for me in the educational world or the working world. But also there's a space for you in the creative world. And I think for me, the creative world is kind of what's keeping me going, but also showing me that there's this space is just really, it's beautiful, because the Hope calls a giving a space to other people, but I've got to be mindful of the space that I've got. So I wish I could have said that to my 17-year-old self.